Alright, Reams, you've read by the title, this guy thinks he's black. Now, what does that mean? Well, I say I'm a black person, right? And I have for a while, right? And obviously, I am got black skin. And I'm English, right? So, your things are turning, you think this don't make no sense to me. Maybe it does. Maybe it does already. But yeah, I say I'm a black person, right? And I say that there's always been black people in England, right? Before we've had like African people or whatever, right? What we commonly consider as black people, right? Now, what I'd like to question though is we're so what I'm trying to say, yeah, is it's a culture and not necessarily just a race. Now, the strange question is, would all African people be black? I don't know. Maybe that's a generalisation, or maybe that is true. Who knows? I don't know. But I do think black people exist. We know that, right? But what I mean by a black person is like anarchists, outlaws, goths, bikers, pirates, like people, like musicians and stuff, and what in England you might call niggardly people, right? Which, yeah, I don't even know if that's the way where that word comes from, but in England it means, yeah, like a miser, So people like, and if you've ever been in England, like people with donkey carts and all that sort of stuff, there's a culture like in England of like black people, right? Now, rich or poor or whatever, I don't know, and whether they're oppressed or not is that's a whole different like kettle of fish. But what I'm trying to say is potentially and perhaps all of these black cultures, which aren't necessarily what you consider African cultures, or whatever, they all have similarities, and I just go as far as to say they have the same similarities as black culture in Africa, right? And I think being black is actually is a culture and it's a mindset and it's almost like a key or a taste or something which is ingrained in your soul, in your personality, in your heart of hearts, of things that you like, love, and live by, and all these sorts of things, which transcends race, right? Which I think is actually very interesting. But yeah, pirates, outlaws, all these sorts of things, I think they're the best. They're like anti-heroes and anarchists and goths and all those sorts of things. They're the best. Now, I even think, right, that potentially, like, the world as we know it, right, but we're like older than the face of the earth. Man is older than the face of the earth. And I think potentially, like, we all stem from like the Holy Land or something. Because if you observe in the Holy Land, there's people who have like blue eyes, different colour hair, all these sorts of things. And I think how it potentially worked is like in the old tribal days, we were one big tribe, the Gothic tribe, right? Right? Before, because the Goths, like Romulus and Remulus, where I got my name Remus, yeah, Romulus, Remus, Romulus being the Romans, Remus being the Goths, right? Remus, right? Uh, he's like the Goths, right? And essentially, right, all the Gothic culture is destroyed. The Goths don't even know their own names because it was destroyed by the Romans, right? Now, the Gothic culture is a spoken word culture anyway, conveniently, which is like written from the start, it's legends, all this sort of stuff passed down through like poetry and all this sort of stuff. It's revealed to like Goths and stuff, right? So the fact that it was destroyed doesn't really affect the fact that the Gothic culture still exists, it's still observed. But I think at one point, my phone just died.
We're back, and as I was saying, so what I was saying was, yeah, so we're all united, one big family before the Romans like divided into like territories to stop us. Because before in Europe, at least, when the Europeans would go around all the different settlements driving their cattle and all this sort of thing, they would speak each other's languages and stuff. They're all Gothic languages, right? And we were all like one big tribe, right? And then uh, yeah, like the Romans basically they were like Romans and Reams were always like clashing and fighting each other and all this sort of sending their armies against each other to fight and all these sorts of things and all these sorts of things. But then penultimately the Romans sort of like beat us or whatever, I suppose, in a way, or we let them win for whatever reason maybe, I don't know. but we have like Latin language now, mixture of Gothic and Latin and all that sort of thing. But at one point, I believe it was one big Gothic tribe, and that's why you see like the swastika, for example, which was driven by like the Celts and the Goths around the world with religion, because God, the word God, is actually a Gothic word, and like the oldest deities and the original deity is actually from Northern Europe, right? And they basically took like religion. It's not like the Abrahamic religions as we know them, like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They're not like the original. Like before that, we had like Woden. Woden was the All Father, and they translated it to Jupiter. Jupiter being All Father, Pater being Father, Jew being like God. And then they also changed to Zeus. They translated it all around the world, and they took the swastika and the symbols, the hallowed symbol of peace, which obviously Hitler jumped on because he realised it was a really powerful symbol of like Halloween and all this sort of thing, and he wanted to take it for his own. But before that, the swastika is actually really, really old. Now, to put it into sort of context, the earliest example of the swastika is engraved into a mammoth tusk, right, which is believed to be hundreds of thousands of years old, right? The pyramids are only 10,000 BC, right? So we're talking like 10 times as old as the pyramids here. So anyway, they took religion around the world and they translated and all this sort of stuff. And how many times since the dawn of man has this been done? I don't know. But what I'm trying to get to about the whole black culture thing, right, is that the Europeans potentially observed like phenotype in the different like types of like human like what's called like energenics, is that the word? I don't know if that's the right word, but so say if you had like ginger hair or blonde hair or whatever, brown hair or whatever, they'd move you to different tribes potentially, right? And they'd send you around because all the different parts of Europe would stand for different things, right? Frisia for the Frisians, because Frios, I think Frisians are to do with Frio as in Odin's wife, and the Saxons were the children of the Celts, who were like the mercenaries, and that's when like the Romans invaded like England, the Angles and stuff, who were like all of the sea people, and then the Picts and the Scots, who were named after the boats. These are all different tribes, different Celtic tribes, different Gothic and Celtic tribes, and the Gauls, right? People say from Turkey, right? Originally, and the last settlement for the Goths is in France. But then also we know that the Gauls is in like Gaelic, right? Gaelic and that. They're like Northern English, like Northumbria, right? So the whole world, as I'm saying, is potentially like the man is older than the face of the world, right? But anyway, so they potentially observed all these different like race types and grouped them into different like tribes, right? And not so much in like the Holy Land, which was still like a mixture of people and that, but then around the world, they'd observe all these different like race types essentially. So what I'm saying is, at one point, the world we could have all just been completely like completely all mixed up, right? But then like it's kind of bizarre to think that like like potentially like singular like I don't know like fucking like ginger people, for example, would be like which is a recessive gene, right? Everyone in England at some point, like the majority of people in England had ginger hair, right? The Celts had ginger hair. So that makes you think, doesn't it? And like blonde, which is like a recessive gene as well. Like, why would you have a nation of all blonde people unless you were observing like phenotype and stuff and all this sort of things, as they called it, right? So yeah, I do believe that we were all one big tribe, right, which was split up. So yeah, there's no saying that people from Africa or people from parts of Europe, and we're all, they're all sort of separate. We're all potentially come from the same original backgrounds anyway, right? And then we've just been separated, right? But even when we were separated, the traditions, which are just human traditions, which, as I'm saying, are written from the stars, they shine through and they reveal themselves. So it's all the same. So Romulus and Remus, right? Like Romans and the Goths, that's like man, right? Which everyone is party to. So like, yeah, don't feel like don't buy into this like Latin segregation of culture. We're still like actually one world tribe, and that's what I want to see a reformation of. Like the All Father Siegel over the world, and a unity of the Gothic tribes and stuff again. And that's what I want to see, the Gothic annex. So yeah, I do think I'm black, And I do think black people have always existed in England, and I don't think it's a race thing. And I think that, yeah, tradition is a human thing, and just the same with God. As when God comes again and reveals Himself to people, and they often say, "This is not a new religion," you know. It's just a human experience. Do you know what I mean? It's an understanding which is given from on high. You know, these things cannot be sort of, you know, sort of don't know, pinned down to one point, and you know they're just a human experience. So yeah, uh, well, I hope that comes across to you well, and I'm quite proud of being black, and I love being black, and yeah, and up the black flag.